And anything is apparent. As the students of Vedanta, you all know, anything that is apparent is not actually there, but is only something that you imagine it to be there. That is the difference between an apparent contradiction and something that is real. Well, even something apparent is really very troublesome thing. As the Vedanta will show, when there is a rope and you think of it as a snake, you get afraid of it. So, even an apparent contradiction requires some explanation. In fact, this tendency to see some kind of a contradiction or feel experience in part of the contradiction between the teachings of the great master and of Swamiji existed in very early times of our monastic growth. As it said, after Swami Vivekananda's return from the West, he wanted to formulate his scheme of work in this country. He brought together all his brethren and made these proposals to the Bhagavad. And it is said that among them, one of the leading lights, Swami Vivekananda, refused to fall in line with the proposals that Swamiji made. It is recorded. But then, he was a person with very strong will, Swami Vivekananda, and unless he was absolutely convinced, he will not accept anything. Swamiji finally won him over, throwing his hands around his shoulder and telling him that here I am stating. And the master has given me the right of interpreting his message. I am stating that these teachings serve the line of work that I propose for you, not in any way against. Now what is it that makes them feel that there is some sort of difference? In fact, whereas I have come across a writing by some Western writer, he in describing Swami Vivekananda, he describes him as the unfaithful disciple of so and so. That way, it begins with that expression. The idea being that people at large feel that there is some difference. Now what is it due to? When we read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, we find there the master exhorting people to engage themselves in spiritual practices, and in the course of their they have activities, not to forget that this achievement of the spiritual goal is the one end of life. You may remember the analogy that is used. The person going to a temple, and if he carries outside, going to the bazaars and seeing the sights there, by the time he enters the temple, their sign may be closed. So he said, go to the temple, worship there, and then come and look around and see the things and select whatever you want at the bazaars. Then you find in many places telling the disciples that you must have the realization of the Lord, and then do activities, whatever you like. Then ask the question, if you happen to see the Lord's vision before you, will you ask Him for roads and dispensaries and hospitals and schools and things of that kind, or will you ask Him for the realization? There are many such statements in the late master's teachings, recorded in the Gospel, where we find him exhorting their persons to concentrate exclusively on the spiritual gospel and not dissipate their energy to this way and that way. And to crown all these instances I gave, I mentioned to you another very unique incident in connection with the great Swami Ramakrishna. Swami Ramakrishna heard from some of his, some Swamiji probably, that the language, Persian language, has got great literature, poetry, that's of a devotional type. Swamiji extolled it to such an extent. Swami Ramakrishna felt that he must study Persian language, at least in order to read these great devotional poets. So he took to the study of Persian. One day at Dakshineshwar, the master wanted Shashi to attend on him for some purpose. He called him once, did not make the appearance. Called him second time, he didn't come. Third time also, he did not appear. Then he sent somebody, or shouted aloud, then he came. Then he asked him, what's the matter with you? I called you twice. Why didn't you come and make your call? Then the Maharaj told me that I'm studying Persian and I've been reading the Persian text and my mind is so reading it. Then the master looked at his face. Well, if you spend all your mind on study of Persian, with all your concentration in this way, probably you will lose your bhakti. And that was the warning or the time in this Swami Ramakrishna ceased to study any book. He gave up the study of all his books because the master said something like that. And it was only after he went to Madras, years after, to an instance of Swamiji, that he again did the study of books and all that. Now I mentioned these instances which may probably frighten us that all that we are doing is against the master speaking to them at that time. I mentioned this also to show that there is a trend of teaching in the great master wherein he insists on people like those who are immediately concentrate on bhakti, devotion, and on the righteousness of the Lord. Now, Swami Vivekananda, he is the great apostle of the master, and we know, or we have the tradition is, that the master passed away, he gave this power to him and commanded him to guide his disciples, and what passed between them we do not know, that the whole thing is entrusted as it were to him. So Swami Vivekananda should certainly have known the mind of the great master and the great lectures that he delivered, especially in the great lecture of Entirety, my master, he concludes it with a peroration which he says that if any good word, any truth, any useful, helpful word has come out of my mouth, or any good act that I have done, that all that, the credit, all that has come to the inspiration he gave me, all that is his and not mine. Saying, the implication being that he has reflected before mankind the message that the master wanted to give. In that message that he gave, was no doubt has got great importance. Now, in trying to understand the pace of work in Swami Vivekananda's teachings, you have to look at two aspects of him, in him, as a teacher. He is a teacher, a spiritual teacher, an acharya, giving the spiritual message to mankind and helping individuals to rise above, to rise above ignorance and attain the divine. He is on the other side also a national leader, addressing his message not to this individual or that individual or a small group, but to the country or the people as a whole. You have to make, in studying this instruction thinking, you have to make clearly something that he gives to the country or the people as a whole, and certain messages which he gives to certain groups or on certain occasions and things like that. For example, there are certain very striking and we may say puzzling you're not speaking. Not reading. Okay, there are passages in this where it speaks of tells somebody you reach God more easily through football than through the Bhagavad Gita. There are other statements of the fact and says you close all the temples in India, in the country today, and for 100 years let this our country be your only God or person. There are not statements of this type in this. So, in trying to understand Swamiji, you have to take the totality of his message. You have to take the totality of his message, and not one section or one line or one word or a sentence or something of that kind from his works. So, I would try to place before you the Swami Vivekananda, men of innumerable types went. Some of them were spiritual aspirants, others were not such great spiritual aspirants, others were incompetent adhikaris, others, some were very highly competent people probably, and all types of such people went. Well, among the people who went to the great master in those days, those who frequented at least him, were mostly spiritual aspirants. No doubt, though others also came visitors to see something that was curious. Now, Swami Vivekananda therefore speaks to people of different types of adhikaris, people of different capacity, competence, and his message of his teaching, one side, as I told you, the country as a whole. I speak here, first of all, the spiritual aspirants. Now, various types of people went to follow and became his disciples, people of different spiritual capacities. Now, as you all know, the sadhana or the spiritual disciplines given for people vary according to their capacity. It is the Indian tradition. Now, a question is raised. Take for example, the interpretation of the Veda. Just now I was translating a verse from the Srimad Bhagavata concerning this, the place of work in the Vedic scheme. He says, the Veda is a kind of a Parokshavada. The teaching that is given is a kind of a Parokshavada, that is an indirect teaching, the purpose of which is not exactly what it says, but something that it implies. Just like in giving a medicine to children, the parents speak very highly of its syrup or something, color or something that you have put in it, and attract their attention to it and make them swallow it. All the fine words that they have spoken about the color of the medicine, about its taste and about its use, the attractiveness and all that, is just to draw the child to sip that medicine, which he may not do otherwise. All that speech that he made, the attractive words that he used, the meaning of it is not what it directly states, but the implied purpose of it. The implied purpose being that the medicine should be swallowed and the disease must be cured. Now, the text states that this is a sort of Parokshavada of this type, of an indirect speech through which you are attracted to it. Now, it is said, if, say for example, there are many people who go to the temples and worship the deity and all that. Why? Because they have got various desires or various weaknesses that they think they get over by going to the deity. Now, the text speaking about those deities, it speaks, we will give you this, all these gifts. If it were not there, this man would not at all have gone to the deity of our worship. Because this is stated like in this form in the text, it goes to the deity, and ultimately some of his wishes are fulfilled, his mind may get turned towards God, towards the Supreme Being. If it were not the case at all, these people would never have gone to the temple. If the Veda had stated only the Upanishads, the ultimate purpose of the Veda is to draw man into the Upanishads and the teachings contained in it, to bring illumination to the minds of man. But if the Veda had spoken only about it that way, a large number of people who are not spiritually competent to understand it would never have gone to the Veda or the practices mentioned in it. So, the Veda has inculcated various kinds of practices which people ordinarily can do, given various explanations, falashruti, what they call it, or what it is, secure and all that, and people going for it, and various kinds of spiritual capacities. The capacity to stand, endurance, and then there's capacity to control the senses. So many things are developed, required to perform all these rituals and all these things, and in the course of it, their mind gets more and more purified. They are asked afterwards to do all these as a dedicated duty to the Lord, and they become competent, their mind becomes competent to understand the gospel, the message. Now, in this world, Swami Vivekananda taught and the specific disciplines meant for bringing that illumination. But this specific discipline for being is possible only for a person who has attained a certain competence and who has undergone through a long preparatory process. For example, there is this electric light here. To get the light, you have only got the switch. But behind the switching, beside the switching, pulling the switch, you have the electrical lining, and then the transmission from the powerhouse to this, all this work has been done behind, and it is the last act of it, the final end of it is pull the switch. A person who doesn't know anything about it will think that pulling the switch is bringing the light. But the pulling the switch, if that is not connected to the current and all that powerhouse and all that are not been built, pulling the switch will be a very vain act. It will have no result. There will not be light, there will not be illumination. Now, in thinking about the spiritual doctrines, our position is just like a small child who doesn't understand anything about background of electricity and all that. He finds somebody pulling the switch and it is coming to him. It is not that. The mind has to be prepared, has to be refined and prepared in order to receive the teaching. In the case of Sri Ramakrishna, what happens is, almost all the people he has endowed with such power that all the people who went to him, by an act of his will, he raises them to spiritual heights. A touch of him purifies a man. Act of will of his brings him perfection. And it is with this, what you or I will require so many years or so many lives to achieve, by Sri Ramakrishna, by his power, enables the individuals, the aspirants, to attain. So Swami Vivekananda said, speaking about what is an incarnation, it is the most finest description that has been given of an incarnation. He said, he who can rub off what we call what is written on the head. You know, writing on the head is something that in all Indian languages we have got. On the head something is written, and that is the destiny of the man. And that is written on the head. That is what he put it. So, something is written on the head of a person. Incarnation is one who can rub it off. Nobody else can. God alone can do it. What is written on the head of a person. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, you see, all those who are at their last birth, all those who are ready for illumination will come running to me. And so he is there for a direct redemption of people who sought the higher attainments, who are just about on the point of pulling the trigger, this switch, and who had probably done much of this putting up this electricity line and things of that type. And here he is all power, all the spiritual, the great divine mother had brought him out for that. Now, when he says that to somebody, he was to Shashi Maharaj, for example, that you should not spend your energy on this or that, Latin study or the Greek study, use your bhakti will be affected, you do this. Well, it is legitimate. It is quite right, because it's just like, you see, supposing there is another illustration which some of the scriptures give. There is a paddy. Paddy is boiled and it is husked. And after the fire is boiled and husked, then you won't go on husking it again. After the paddy is husked, what you do is you cook it. In place of cooking, you go on husking it. It will not be ready for food. That's another illustration that some of the Vedantic texts give about it. So he was a person who had already husked his paddy. I mean, husked his grain, and then it has to be put into the oven and made rice, fit for eating. So it is just like this. In the Vedic and Hindu tradition, karma action, either ritualistic or non-ritualistic, that is of the nature of one's dharma, they are all meant in order to prepare the mind of the man for receiving the infinite light. If the mind is not prepared, it will not shine, whatever the teaching may be. So, the karma, according to people, according to the great ones, when done without desire and as an offering unto the divine, has got just a different effect, entirely a different effect from what it brings about when done with desire and for self-centered motives. So Swamiji taught what is given in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the doctrine for all ordinary people with some spiritual aspiration, with some capacities. Now, they cannot occupy their time and their mind with purely Brahmachinta. Now, just a very interesting incident comes to my mind, which I heard from one of our Swamis, Swami Ramakrishna, in good old days in the Gaur Maths, when Swami Premananda was there. He was a very loving soul. When people came, he gave them good prasada, spoke nice words, and people were all loved. But once they were recruited and came into the field as brahmacharis, then he was a harsh taskmaster. He would not give them rest, make them work, so hard work. Now, one Swami, he passed away some time back. They revolted against his study. Well, Maharaj, we came here not to work, we came to meditate. Swami said, very good, I shall give you full opportunity to meditate. He gave him a room, you meditate there, you will put everything, will come here, you will lock the room, and the key will be in my hand, you will be at that supper hour, you will then go out for answering and all that. 2 days, or 1 day, not 2 days or something, I want to work, I don't want to meditate. He began to say, no, it's a very practical demonstration of this Vedantic discipline. Very practical demonstration. Now, when it is pointed out, you see, it's a great, psychologically a great truth. When Swamiji has done a very great thing in introducing this work. Only we do not understand this philosophy of work, or even if we understand, we do not put it into practice. Swamiji knew he built this modern mission for two purposes. One is they say to the country, and they put Atmano Mokshata and Jagat Nititaya and all that. Now, the other for the individual salvation. Both these should be fulfilled with the work, the organization that he built. Now, work, of course, of a social upliftment and all the type of work which you are doing, it may not transform the country. It does a lot of good to a large number of people. You cannot deny it. And in that sense, work is productive and creative. Nobody can find fault with work of a creative and productive and service type. It's appreciated by everybody. But then, the individuals concerned with this work are some of those who feel whether it is going against or not. Now, you have to remember that almost all 99% and 9 recurring of people who have come into this mission and all that are people with average capacities. Many of them may not have average capacities. In a very, at one time probably greater aspirants came. When you get good buildings and fine ways of life and all that, there will be many people attracted by those things also. There are many people I find come to join. They have not read anything about Ramakrishna or Vivekananda or anything of that kind. They come and say that I want to join the mission. They ask the question, what do you know of Ramakrishna, what do you know of the mission? They have read nothing. Recently I had an example of a very man of high education. He is a lecturer in the IIT class. He came to say, I want to join, I don't like this. 1 week after he left, he said, telling that he came in without any idea what it is and what the life is and what he will be prepared to do and all that. And many people may be coming without any strong vairagya. Just somebody advised them, some Swami persuaded them, or they found some Swamis are going to from foreign countries. I'll also get an opportunity to go to foreign countries. Foreign countries I've got a aim. Somebody is flying. I also will be able to fly some days after. With all these early aspirations hidden, lying in the mind, down below, many people will be coming. If you all examine into your hearts, you will find all these things are there in some way or other. Some may have less, some have not. Then, along with that, some aspiration also there is. Some spiritual aspiration, and our life must be devoted for some good purpose. And among them, there may be some with a very strong devotional bent also. Now, how to get together all these people and together and form some kind of a standardized spiritual discipline for everybody? All these types will get some opportunity or other to follow their own way. When an organization of the type that Swamiji founded, his first concern, the most important concern, must have been that. He must have, of course, foreseen what type of people will be coming, and how to put them all together and give them a lift. From where you are, to give us a lift. Without knowing our limitations, and if we think we are standing on this level, and if we immediately think we are not standing here, but we are standing at a higher pedestal, and try to fix our feet there, what will happen is we will fall down only. We are at a certain stage in which we stand, and there we will have to be. Now, it is an accepted teaching of all the Vedantic scriptures, including the Bhagavad Gita, that work can be combined and made a part and parcel of spiritual discipline up to a certain stage. There is a difference of opinion after that. Even Shankaracharya, interpreting the Gita in the earlier stage, he says there is samuchaya at a certain stage, but then at a later stage there is no samuchaya possible. In jnana nishtha, that is what we put. Now, all the majority of people who have come to Swamiji and we should not think of the discipline that is suited for a very small microscopic minority of people is suited for all. That's the wrong way of thinking. The discipline that is suited for the vast majority of people is the discipline that is to be projected and popularized. On the other hand, if you project the discipline that is applicable only to a small minority, this is what happened in Shankara Vedanta and his preaching. a discipline that is suited to a small minority of people, that discipline is put and is given so much emphasis in a theoretical way. In regard to this, there's contradiction between work and jnana. That samuchaya is not possible. And this is spoken of from the highest point at which jnana nishta, the man is engaging. That aspect of the Shankara teaching has been projected and unduly preached by the exponents of Vedanta. And those very people, Panditas and all that who expound that doctrine, are the persons least fitted for it. And their own life you will find they engage in all kinds of things only. They will talk about Paramartha and absolutely immersed in the Vivahara, they will be talking. So, one part that is applicable only, see, the trouble has been that the Vedanta which is meant for practice has been made a subject for talking. And when man can talk, and the tongue has no bones or anything, and you can talk anything and everything, you will learn. And if he has got sufficient intelligence, he will talk on. What is its relevancy to life? That many people will not think when they begin to fly, when they get high in the Vedanta, the heights of the Vedantic discipline. And so this idea that Indian philosophy always teaches there's a contradiction, that work is against all kinds of spiritual discipline. On the other hand, Indian philosophy teaches, as Bhagavad Gita has done, and as Swamiji has put it, this work is an important ingredient or aspect of spiritual life up to a certain state of man's attainment. If it is not done, Bhagavad Gita calls it, a man becomes a mithyachara. Becomes a mithyachara means he becomes a hypocrite. And his spiritual development does not at all take place. So, when Swamiji spoke about work and emphasized upon it, he is doing exactly what is according to the spiritual tradition of India. It is not contradictory to the great master's teaching. The great master's teaching, where he speaks in this way, is meant for people whom he raises to a very high spiritual level by his own power, and who are capable of engaging themselves in meditation. And then another point. Those people whom he was addressing in the gospel and all that, they are people who are engaged in various kinds of work on the outside. And the rest of the time which they have, he is exhorting them, you must go and meditate and think on God and take leave from all your works for a number of days and continuously try to think of Him. In that way, sustain or enrich your spiritual power. Of course, there are certain cases in where he says that after realization only you come for work. I do not know after realization how many people will come for work, whether anybody will come or anybody is interested in work. In the Indian tradition, what we say, when he becomes realized, so there are various stages of realization. He means that by only probably that your spiritual tendencies are strengthened. And if your spiritual tendencies are not strengthened, you may get removed from these, get mixed up with all things. So people in the world spoke like that. Now, fortunately for us, if you are talking about Ramakrishna missions, Brahmacharis, Sannyasis and all that, Swamiji has given up a scheme of life in which he has tried to integrate the spiritual practice and your work. It is for this that probably one of the reasons why he founded a mutt and a mission, and he can give us the idea that the great master lives in this organization of this mutt and this monastic brotherhood and all that, and the works that are done through that are the works done for him. Now, what I would like to emphasize on this is, we, the monastics of this in this order, have to take this idea very seriously. That the works that we do is not contradictory to our sadhana meditation. It is a part and parcel of our meditation if we follow the teachings of the great ones. If we have understood it deeply in our heart. For example, I shall tell you, one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Ramakrishna, if you read his life, you will find it is recorded in one of the reminiscences of, I think, either Swami Sarvananda or Swami Madhavananda. They said Swami Ramakrishna in his days, when young brahmacharis or sannyasis were there, He never cared to see whether they meditated or not. There is meditation. But he was always careful whether they worked, and in that work, whether they were bestowing their fullest attention. If you found the least kind of negligence, details, especially in the matter of worship, external worship and all that, you came down upon them with very great vehemence. But he never looked at how much whether they spent part of, they did meditation for 1 hour, 2 hours, or this or that. There was some routine and all that. I am not telling that no routine is necessary or that. Now, here you find his idea was, you had to develop what you call the monastery and its various duties. This is a service not of the head or of the authorities here who send you, nor of the head who is presiding over it, nor of your senior who is directly under you, but it is you are working for the great master. It is the work and the service of the great master that you are in. Whether it may be cooking in the mud, whether it is Bandari's work, or whether it is an editor's work, or whether it is conducting a dispensary, or whether it is teaching and teaching. These are not we are not doing it for this X, Y, or Z, but this is done for the great master. Now, this attitude the great disciples of the master Ramakrishna wanted us to develop. It is from that the brotherhood that developed. If you read the life of Swami Ramananda or any of these, that's why we should read the lives of these great disciples. It is through the lives of all these great disciples that Ramakrishna speaks to us. Swami Vivekananda was the biggest voice. But all these other disciples, Holy Mother, these all are his expressions of his voice. And through all that he speaks his message. So when we study all this, their lives, we find that all of them considered that the master was not simply a god in a temple. The master is come for a message to fulfill for humanity at large, and that we are all his servants in the fulfillment of that great message that he wanted to disseminate in the world at large. Now, if we bring this attitude cultivate this attitude in our daily activities in the mart, I think there will be a great transformation in ourselves as well as in the general working of the mission. For example, just I should tell you some certain things that are now the most complicated problems in the mart. They say there's question of workers. Every center says no workers, more workers. But if you try to study the actual quantum of work that many of these so-called workers are doing, that will be only half of it or less of it if they put in their best. So a work in the cause of the master means you have to give your best into it and consider the whole institute, organization, or what you work in the center as a totality. Now you find this compartmental mentality. A man is a manager or a teacher or this or that. He just looks at it. If something goes wrong on the other side, he doesn't look at it either. Now, how does it come? How does it happen? It happens because in place of the monastery being a center of worship for the master, it has become an office or a workshop in the eyes of the many people. When it becomes an office or a workshop or anything, then that's the mentality. But when you look at it as a whole, as something that is meant to do the work of the great master and to serve him, then all of us are part and parcel of it, then everything becomes in a related way your own concern. Some work that is for you, you may do at least. Then other things where something is lacking, something is required, without you are not a person who just shows his temper at that time or some reluctance and all that. He is doing something that goes against his sadhana. His sadhana is contradicted by his attitude. If we have got the attitude that all the work we are doing to the master, we will try our best to do it in a very perfect manner and come in wherever our services are required. So, in this work itself, you see, the idea of worship, idea of perfection, idea of the concentration, all these are involved. Only thing is, we do not think deeply about it. Work becomes, as in the course of time, something routine. I have to do this work. I somehow manage to do it. And if you look into the life of a very large number of people in our mission and monastery, how much of time we spend in gossiping, how much of time we spend in weighing, sleeping during daytime, and how much we work with intensity. If you look into all this, you will find we are not following the Swamiji's instruction. I'm not sure there are some people are laughing. I'm not speaking against a little sleep in the daytime. You sleep a little for rest, half an hour. But I've seen people snoring 2 hours, 3 hours. And young men, if they lie down and sleep comes in uninvited, it comes with sleep. and they can even defeat Kumbhakarna. You see, when an old chap like myself lies down, I won't get much sleep, you see. But young men can get very good sleep. Of course, a little, Swamiji was also, somebody quotes Swamiji. Swamiji expected that those disciples were spending a lot of time at night, late in the deep night, into midnight in meditation. And so, there was the requirement for some extra sleep during that. But we have followed the method, no meditation at midnight. Enjoyment of deep sleep during the daytime. No, a little sleep, rest is necessary, even physiologically, when the stomach begins to work. If you are active and all that, digestion is affected, and a little rest, as a nap or something is all right. But this has been abused. Sleeping and sleeping. Then people have no time for study. People get up early in the morning and do not spend much time in sleeping. Even very busy centers, you will get sufficient time for all these things. The work has to, except for us in certain occasions, certain centers, certain situations, when there is some emergencies and all that. Normally, in most of our monasteries, people get sufficient time. Only thing is, when there is no pressure behind, we become leisurely. Say, I must tell all our Thakur Bhandaris in Madras. We have got Thakur Bhandari, a Pujari and a Bhandari. Now, this Bhandari can spend the whole day in making one flower or pulling out the he can engage in work, he can do it. Why? There is no pressure. Man works only when there is pressure from behind. You have finished it, after that there is something else. Otherwise you must have so much of self-discipline. So when there is no pressure, as in his work, he goes on, engages himself in that long time. And the Pujari finishes the puja 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. Then the rest is free. He is expected to meditate, do japa and all that, but he won't do it. He will go about seeking who are devotees or anybody to talk with them. About taking life easily. On the other hand, if you ask them who go to the office to do certain works there that is urgent, that is necessary, they will feel that is some interference with their freedom or they are given something extra. But if it is for wasting time, what you call killing time, it's quite legitimate. Now this attitude we have to get over, that we should put our best, and to waste time in any kind of this sort of useless sins one can commit. Because time lost is lost for all. Time lost is never regained. Money lost may be recovered, but time lost is never recovered. It's for all time to gone. And we have to use the time that is at our disposal in the best manner possible. Say, you find, I have seen sometimes, maybe for mere show, I do not know, some of these Catholic monks and all that, when they are traveling, they carry a Bible with them. And traveling in the train or bus or anything, they take a Bible and read a little. Whether it's only for show or really, I do not know. But it's a very good discipline, that when you are free, you engage your time in something useful, using the religious literature, Bible, this or that, in place of looking about this way, that way, and so in that way, we must use our time in the useful way. And in the monastery where you are placed, we have to put our best and use our maximum time for this sort of thing. I am not telling that you should not use your time for meditation and study, and they are all very necessary. So Swamiji said, the ideal of a monastic that he had, you see, in one of his some place he says, he wants an ideal monk to have the great love of God and devotional zeal, then the learning of a great professor, and the administrative skill of a great administrator, and the philanthropic skill of a humanitarian. All these should be combined, and the one who could combine all these in the maximum degree will be his best follower. Now, everybody must have something of it. That that devotional spirit is a core. And this devotional spirit, if we serve the Master and pray to him and meditate and all that, this devotional spirit in us will grow. It doesn't grow only because our waking life contradicts against our devotional ideals. It contradicts against it, and it nullifies it because we do the work grudgingly, without that sankalpa behind, without putting ourselves our best into it, and it ceases to be a sadhana. What ceases to be a sadhana when the attitude towards it is changed. It becomes just counterproductive. But when the attitude is correct, that is the whole teaching of the scriptures. When the attitude is correct, the work becomes one of the great means of man's spiritual upliftment. So, Swamiji gave us in the world at large also, Bhagavad Gita gives this teaching, no doubt. But the world is a big place. For a man living in the world outside, in the midst of all its strange situations, is very difficult, much more difficult for this attitude to be brought into practice. But here in the sheltered monastery, Swamiji has given us a field in which all facilities exist for practicing of this idea. But our little deficiency, our want of this correct for not understanding and trying to put this idea into practice, we come into clash, people become lazy, and you ask the General Secretary and all these people, they think the problems that are arising out of discord and out of lack of coordination and all that differences, they are not necessarily, they should not be there. In the monastic there is the greatest cordiality and oneness of purpose, and things must go smoothly. If there is lack of cordiality, it is only because there is the defect in our attitudes. And for a line of work, he can serve the cause of the Master all through his life in that particular field. People who have got capacity in that. So, all put together, I mean, to summarize all that I said, when Swamiji founded the theory of work, he had exactly the way Master that man must develop vairagya, man must develop devotion, man must develop spiritual attainment, the illumination is the goal of life. And Swamiji exactly had in mind. Only he gave it to us in a manner that is suited for average souls, average spirits who come for being trained to that purpose. So there's absolutely no contradiction if you go deep into the teachings in the light of the Vedantic ideas propounded in the Bhagavad Gita and all that. But if we don't do it, if we do it very superficial manner, only take Ramakrishna said about Vairagya and realization and all that. Now Swamiji speaks about love. This is different, that's different. That's a superficial view. But if you go into the philosophical implications, the depth of those two teachings, you find they are both just the Upanishads and the Vedic Samhita and Vedic theory of work. Just like that, they are coordinated. There is no contradiction or conflict. Conflict is only apparent, only just at the surface. And until you develop capacity to meditate for 10 hours, 5 hours, or you develop the Vedanta Chinta, this discriminative thought, when you try to abolish the distinction of the seer and the seen object as higher Vedantic discipline. At that stage only, if there is any contradiction, it comes. And there is Ramakrishna saying that the great Divine Mother has arranged everything in his way, like a man is fit for that, naturally he gives him leave, he says. He takes the example of a woman in the family, when she is in the family way, at the advanced stage, the mother-in-law and all that, exempts her from every work. When the child is born, she is returned to family. And before that, she is put to all kinds of works. He says it automatically takes place in the spiritual scheme. This is what the great master puts. So, there also he has got his work. You see, he has got to divide into these stages. in this analogy that he gives. So we are all at that stage. We are all at the not in the below the middle rung of the ladder. It's not. By telling that we are not making an underestimation of ourselves. Sufficient estimation, if we have taken a few steps, even that is very good. But you are coming to it in order that this devotional zeal and vairagya may be developed by the practice of this discipline. Swami has given us this. So, I request it that when you do works in monasteries, never do in a grudging manner. Do it with full consciousness that you are serving not the mahant or the manager or this man or that man or authority, but you are serving the great master. And if you have got that attitude, you will try to put our best. And I make fun with somebody. Someone wanted to leave. Somebody was asking, I have been so many years working. I want 3 months leave, 4 months leave. I asked such person, do you want leave to go away from God and work for Him? You want to leave from your devotional life. Because we do not take this work as a part of our devotion, we ask for leave. Just like in offices and all that. This leave word itself is a blasphemy, I would say, in the monastery. There should be no talk of leave. You say, I am trying to exploit people by making all this. It's not. Leave is a contradiction. You just think of it. You have no leave. We cannot call leave. If you are tired or weak or all that, some rest for the most. Just leave. Your leave is just like I'm a sannyasi now. I give up my sannyasa for 6 months and come back to sannyasi again. It's just like that. It's just like that. When I show this, you understand the ridiculousness of it. It's ridiculous. Just like that. And so, we take this whole as a place of discipline, sadhana. Look at all that is only the proper orientation in the attitude.